Looks like we are live. Okay. Hello, everybody. I am Trisha Dyka, and I'm really excited to bring back my interviews. I'm going to be doing them hopefully weekly. And I'm really excited today. I am here today with Susan Lewis, and we're going to really be talking about our emotional intelligence and coaching and how to really define that and bringing that more so that we have a better coaching experience with our clients. Now, Susan Lewis is an experienced educator with over 23 years of teaching and coaching experience. Her journey began in the classroom, nurturing young minds until she ventured beyond those walls to teach and coach adults. She has dedicated herself she has dedicated herself over the past 13 years to mastering the art of teaching and coaching adults through authentic, evidence-based methods that lead to lasting change. Now her mission is to ensure that others who lead adults through transformation through coaching and teaching have the knowledge and skills she lacked when she began. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I find it is truly, learning is such a big thing for all of us. We have to constantly be learning and growing as coaches to coach others. So I'm really excited about this conversation, and welcome, Susan. Tell us a little bit about what all of this means.
Well, thank you so much, Trisha, for having me. Really excited to be here. And so a little bit about what you just shared in my intro there about kind of the skills that I lacked when I first became a coach. And it's kind of ironic, I find, because I was a teacher for so many years, and I have my master's degree in being a teacher. And you would think that some of those teaching skills would translate into being a really good coach. And what I found when I left the classroom with children and started working with adults, those skills did not translate. And one of the really key important things that I had to learn as a coach, and really even just in preparation of thinking about today, is that foundation level is really about the relationship, right? And it's all about building really solid relationships to be able to work from. And in order to have really solid relationships, we have to be able to manage ourselves, right? And also recognize when others maybe are struggling with that self-regulation or emotional awareness. Because I was watching something else totally unrelated today, but I thought really it kind of triggered a thought for me around this topic of how many people in the world, but also the US specifically. And I can really relate to this because I was one of those people up until several years ago, where we really stunt and push down our emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And really avoid emotions. And so what happens when we're a coach who does that? And then also what happens when we have clients who do that, right? How do we open those spaces and those avenues up in order to connect and really build, again, those really healthy, strong relationships to really work from?
Would you suggest, and I'm one of those people too, I used to bury everything and put, just keep putting boulders on top of boulders because I didn't want to deal. I didn't want to recognize. I did not want to go there until the universe decided, well, let's address this.
Usually how it happens.
Yeah, that definitely does happen.
Yeah.
But when you talk about building relationships, do you highly recommend building relationships with yourself first?
Yes. So one of my mottos that I talk about in the coaching that I do and the courses that I teach is it's, first me, then you. I need to know how to do all of these things. I need to know how to emotionally regulate myself before I can help anybody else learn how to do it. And so understanding our own emotional triggers, because we all have triggers, whether we want to believe it or admit it or not, we do. Even if we've been doing a lot of healing and a lot of work on ourselves, we still get triggered by things. And that's a continual process. So you have heard me say this before, Trisha, but I'm a believer that I'm an expert in nothing. I really I will be learning until I'm in the dirt. And so that's kind of my motto in life, is that we are always evolving. We're always growing. We're always, at least we should be, when we stay stuck, that means that there's no movement, no growth, no change. And so for me personally, I like evolution. I like change. And so really situating myself in that space, it can be really hard. It can be really uncomfortable. There's days that it sucks. But we have to know, how do we manage those days? How do we navigate through those days, especially when we're a coach? So I'm just going to use today as an example. This is a lived experience right now that I personally was dealing with. 10 minutes before we got online, I had a phone call from my son's dad that they just sent an email out from school that there's an escaped prisoner and they've canceled all after school activities and all kinds of things happening. And where my son goes to school, they can walk in town. There's like a lot of stuff that they do that they can walk to. And so we had to have a conversation about, is this a safe thing to do? What's the concern about it? How do we react to it? And so, that got an emotional reaction from me when I learned this, right? And here I am now needing to jump onto a call where I need to be professional and I need to know how to show up and give from a space, right, of not being distracted by that. And so really, as I was dealing with those kind of heightened emotions just 20 minutes ago, I really had to practice some self-regulation before I got on this call today, right? And so it doesn't negate my feelings. I didn't ignore my feelings, but I acknowledged my feelings. I also have learned to welcome feelings. That was a really interesting shift for me. Even welcoming feelings that we don't necessarily want or like to feel. And you can share this or relate to this too, Trisha. When you're able to do that, your feelings can move through and move on a lot faster versus if we just hold on to it. Right.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought up that example, because so many people get so spun up.
Yeah.
From, even as a coach, as a business owner, I love doing a lot of videos, and I had done a video on TikTok, and within that, it going live, and like you, Susan, I've done a lot of work, but that doesn't always mean a whole lot of that we're always on, because we may have a rough moment. And I remember this happened just a few weeks ago. I did a TikTok video, and immediately somebody came on to leave a comment, and my first initial reaction was like my whole body felt it.
Huh?
And it was like I let myself feel it for like 30 seconds, and I'm like, we're not doing this, because in the grand scope of life, does this really matter?
Yeah.
Nope. So I deleted the comment and just kept going, because we always seem to, and I would love your input on this, we tend to focus on the negative instead of the positive. Like, for example, this is still a perfect example, is people were like, thank you so much. I really want to use this. I want to try this. This is such a great idea, such a great tool. And I have built myself up to, this is where I'm putting my focus. However, so many put their focus on that negative. And as we are as coaches dealing with our clients, what are ways or tools for people to help themselves with that?
So I think from a coach perspective, really recognizing number one, awareness of that, I think, is really important. And then also really thinking about where it stems from. So I think emotional intelligence also goes back to our own childhoods, right? This is for everybody, adults, children alike. And one of the things I think specifically probably more about our generation, and even more so for my dad's generation, is emotions were not talked about. They were actually told to be suppressed. We don't talk about those things. We don't share those things. You need to keep it together. You have to pretend everything's okay. That was really taught, right? And so there's a whole onion peels and layers to this, but that goes into generational trauma, right? That can be passed on generationally, both genetically as well as socially, and so like through just interactions with family. But then also, I think we're seeing a big pendulum switch with children, like younger children today, of really tapping into and learning how to recognize emotions, know how to talk about emotions, know how to deal with emotions, sit with emotions. But I think as a coach, when we find things that people say that hurt our feelings, that, make us maybe feel bad about ourselves, for me, we need to ask ourselves, where does that come from? Why am I feeling that way? And so for me, I'll just share my own experience, because I too, I've been teaching for a very long time, and I get course evaluations, and I can get 99% great course evaluations and get one person who says something negative and spiral about it, right? I think that's very ego driven also, but then also for me, I have grown up as a people pleaser my whole life. And so that is something that was instilled in me at a young age for a variety of reasons. And I had a really wonderful childhood. Like I really actually did. I think we sometimes think traumas come from, oh, you must have had a terrible childhood. No, trauma is different and unique to every single person. And so I really experienced some traumatic things over my life, but I also had a really great childhood. But I was a people pleaser, and I didn't know this about myself until just a few years ago. I didn't have a name for it. I didn't recognize where it came from. I had to do a lot of excavating for that. And so for me, I have recognized why I like to always please people and where that comes from. And so now that I'm aware of it, I'm able, just like you gave your example, I'm also then able to see it and then release it, because it, like, in the grand scheme of things, not everyone in the world's going to like you.
No.
I don't like everybody in the world. So I mean, it's okay. And so we have to almost build up our resilience around that when people have negative things to say. The other thing that I really have practiced in that particular space is, instead of internalizing those words or comments or whatever it is people are giving us, I just put a mirror up and I say, that's a reflection of you. And that's something that, that's more about you than it is about me. I can choose to receive and accept what you're saying, but I can also reject that and not participate or engage in it, right? We have choices there. One of the things, though, I think as a coach that's important to bring up when this type of thing can happen is that there are times in coaching relationships, and this can happen very unintentionally. We can trigger our clients and clients can trigger us, right? And so understanding when, number one, just noticing when it happens. And when we notice when it happens, then how do we situate ourselves in a space where we can operate and handle that? And so it might be an opportunity where you may need to just internally practice some deep breathing. Maybe it doesn't need to be discussed. Maybe it's something that was triggered within you and you can manage on your own. Or maybe it's a conversation that you need to have with somebody about, digging a little deeper into, well, can you share more about why you said this? Right? Can you explain your perspective for that, or why you felt that way? Because maybe, again, what they said was unintentional, and maybe we also could misinterpret things, right?
Oh, yes.
And so asking for clarification can be really helpful before just jumping to those conclusions. But, being triggered, it's a physiological response. I mean, you talked about it was a full body response. And that is, chemicals are shooting through our brain. Our blood pressure is going up. Our heart is racing.
Yeah.
Those are physiological responses that we have to learn how to bring back down. As a teacher, I worked with a lot of children with challenging behaviors. And I really liked that work, but it was hard work because kids throwing chairs across the room or punching somebody or throwing things or spitting something or cursing somebody out, like you have you have an immediate response to that, right? And as the adult, this is one thing that did help me, I think, in coaching is as the adult, I had to manage myself first before I could even attempt to help co-regulate with that child. And so I think that's a really important thing as a coach is that we really need to, and that's coming back to this emotional intelligence, we have to be really aware of our emotions. And one of the things I think, and I'm just going to use myself as an example of being a very emotionally detached person for a very long time, I didn't have names for a lot of the feelings that I was having. We bucket things into happy, sad, angry, mad, like we kind of use those big buckets a lot, but like really drilling down, okay, well, I'm mad. Why am I mad? I'm mad because I'm disappointed that somebody didn't follow through or do something for me. Am I mad because I didn't get something that I wanted? Like, why is it that I'm mad? What specifically about it is making me feel that way? And so I talk about the feelings wheel a lot in the work that I do. And so I have a free masterclass that I offer. And also in my 3-month course, we talk really deeply about this, is really getting in touch with our emotions and really recognizing how our emotions ebb and flow throughout the day. Right. So I'm just going to come back to myself today. I was having a pretty good day today. I taught a class this morning. There was some frustration that happened with that because there were some tech issues. Then, I had a good phone call. I was feeling really happy and jovial and joyful. And then I said, was doing some text messaging with a friend and I was really excited about something that we're planning. And then I got the phone call about the school thing happening. And then I was scared, right? It was a fear. I was literally scared about, okay, what does this mean? What do I need to do? And then coming on to this, right? And so recognizing how our emotions, because I don't think we don't give credit or look at it enough. Our emotions are doing this all day long, every day. And how does that show up in relationships with people? Right. So when I got off that phone call and I was happy and jovial, and my son comes into the room to talk to me, I probably am going to be more welcoming and excited to chat with him versus if I just had my website crash, which did happen right before we got on. If that was happening and he walked in to talk to me, I might be a little shorter. I'm not going to say I might be. I know I would be just because I know myself, right? And so knowing those things about ourselves, I think is so critically important because it absolutely influences how we show up with clients, right? And the way that we show up with clients, we are modeling for clients how to show up with us, right?
Yes.
And so we really want to be, everything that I do as a coach, it's not the do as I say, not as I do. Like, is that the right saying?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, is that the right
I get
one?
what you're saying.
Like I walk the talk. Like I want to hold myself accountable to the same things that I want you to hold yourself accountable to. And so, that's a really important part, I think,
Of coaching.
Of coaching. Absolutely. 100%.
It's imperative. It's imperative that you're going to be doing these offerings with people and you yourself have put yourself through those paces. Because how can we really, as coaches, tell somebody to do something that you yourself is unwilling or to do, to try, or to put into place? Like that's really difficult. So yeah, when you said earlier, learning to I think it was learning till I'm in the dirt. It is really very important to, like, I just took some classes. I just bought some classes for subconscious because it is a constant growth. And that growth, the more that we transform, goes to our clients. So the more emotional intelligence that we have, again, now you can actually sit and have a deeper connection. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because this is everything you've said. Like, we're going to have a deeper connection with our clients if we are more self-aware and catching ourselves in those pivotal moments where our emotions are whoop, woof. And it's more on the coming down side that we become more reactive instead of taking that step back.
Yeah.
And I love my husband to death, but there are some days where I'm like, and I catch myself because I'm like, no, this is not even worth my time or energy to argue, because Hugh came in not in the best moods. I may not have had one of the best days. So it's like, I've walked away and been like, yeah, I'll come back in a minute, and we'll have this conversation. So and you see it, especially because you're around these people the most, like your son, like my husband. You're constantly within each other's energy. You're in each other's space.
I have done such a good job as a parent. I joke about this, that like my son and I have very similar temperaments. We both are very quick tempered. And so we can both snap at each other pretty easily and quickly. And so over the course of his life, he's 14 now, but over the course of his life, I have practiced all of this, so like emotional awareness, right, of all these things. And oh, it seems like your body's really upset now. Let's take some deep breaths. And so I've done all this coaching with him that he now is reverting it back onto me. He's like, Mom, it looks like you need to take a deep breath. I'm like,
which
you're
is
right.
Fabulous.
It is fabulous. It really is. Like, and I genuinely am so grateful that it has soaked in and sunk in for him, because he really is very intuitive and connected to not only his own emotions, but emotions of others. And that's really, we probably should have started with this. So I'm sorry for those of you who are still with us. Really, what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is really about recognizing and understanding emotions of both yourself as well as with others. And so it's about self awareness, then also so it starts with self-awareness. First, I need to be aware of what my emotions are. And then I need to know how, okay, so I'm aware of it. Now, how do I manage it? Right. So we can have awareness all day long, but if we don't know how to manage it, that's a problem. And so making sure we have tools, strategies of knowing how to manage ourselves. And so it could be getting up and walking, going for a walk, or just literally walking away. For me, deep breathing is one of my go-tos, because you don't need to be anywhere or have anything to do it. There could be a lot of different strategies that you use. Call a friend, phone a friend. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that we can do to manage ourselves. And so that's all about self, but then also about others, that we can then begin to, so after we kind of master understanding ourselves, then we can start having, again, I'm just going to use coaching relationships as an example. You have a client show up and you can just tell something's off, right? You're noticing, you don't know exactly what it is, but you're noticing there's something that's shifted in how they're showing up that day. And so that social awareness piece is an opportunity then for us to ask questions, for us to offer and be a safe space for people. Because too often, I think emotions just get pushed to the wayside. I'll deal with that later. Let's deal with the task at hand. And I argue you can't deal with the task at hand until you deal with the emotions. That really goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have to have safety, security, all of those basic needs met first before you can do anything at a higher level. And so that social awareness, we can really tap into helping our clients ensure they're in a place to really receive whatever it is that we're helping support them with. And that supports the relationship. That's kind of the fourth piece, is relationship management.
And I want to go back because you've said it more than once. And you and I have spoken about it. And this is why I definitely want to bring it up, is creating questions for your clients that make them think. You constantly say, I use open-ended questions.
Yes.
I would love for you to talk about that a little bit here, and the why that you do it.
Okay, so open-ended questions are really, I mean, a coach's number one tool, probably, because questions are what get people thinking, right? And when we start thinking, we can then start to understand all kinds of things, but really I like to always come back to the why. So why does any of it matter? Right? Like, why do we want to know how do your emotions? So if you're coaching, I'm going to use this as an example. If you're coaching somebody in health and fitness, like maybe you're doing like a exercise, routine with them, and you notice that they come in and they're really off. Why do we care about their emotional intelligence? They're here to work out. Right? We could take that approach, right? Like, that's not my job. And also, I do want to be very clear about the difference between coaching and counseling. We're not counselors as coaches.
Yes.
Coaching and counseling are very different. Coaching is really focused on the present and future, like setting goals. What are things that we want to attain? Counseling is really focused on past, really understanding why I am the way I am. How can I identify? So some of the things that I've done counseling myself for years. That's how I have really healed and worked through a lot of my own issues, was through counseling. Right. And so just really I just wanted to say that distinction. But asking questions as a coach, asking somebody who's coming in for a workout that you can tell is just having an off day, how you doing today? Just opening the door to the conversation. And even, again, this is also depending on your relationship with them. I noticed that something's off. Like, is there anything that you want to talk about? So just offering, right? You're then opening the door to have a conversation. It also could be something that maybe they're not ready to talk about yet, but you're planting a seed that you're a safe space for them. And so by asking questions, it opens doors to conversations that can lead to deeper understanding of self, is really, I think, the purpose I think of when I think about open-ended questions.
And I love the point that you made about the health and fitness coach, because even though it's about health or it's about fitness, there are all other things in play.
And as a coach, regardless of what field you are coaching in, that's why, like, my coaching certification program, it's universal, because the tools that I teach are universal and they're holistic. And when I say, and I think that's what you're getting to, Tricia, right? Like, physical health is important, but it's no less important than mental health, no less important than spiritual health and well-being, right? And so as a coach, addressing kind of the whole person is a really important, I'm thinking about business coaches, I've been in courses, I've also been in coaching in different aspects too, where I really see that it's a very, I don't know what the right word is, but I'm using, like, it's a thin bound, like there's a very narrow space that we're working within, and like nothing else is really important. And I think that's a dangerous place to get into, because you're missing so many other opportunities, and we're also perpetuating people siloing their life. I deal with my emotions over here at this time. I deal with, business over here. I deal with my health over here, instead of recognizing that they're all interconnected. Right. And how do I leverage the strengths and weaknesses across those to support me as a whole human in whatever space or setting that I show up in?
Yes, because the more personal growth it's that ripple effect. It affects your business, it affects your health, it affects, your goals and your dreams, all of these things. So by forgetting that pivotal piece is walking away and not really learning or growing, even if you are a fitness coach. Yes, it doesn't matter.
Yes. I just recently did my free course with a group of folks, and I had some fitness folks in it, which was interesting. And they had some really great takeaways from that, where they said, I had never thought about this stuff before. Right. Like, that was, and also in their training, and this is to no fault of their own, I say this without judgment, we very often train business coaches, fitness coaches. I don't know why I'm stuck on those two. There's lots of other coaches out there too. But in their training, very often we focus on the content, right? We focus on whatever that specific content is, and we neglect, again, all of these other aspects of what it means to just be a human. And so one of the things that I really emphasize in my coaching program, and this is from experience, like the course I've created is what I wish I had when I started, because these were all hard lessons learned along the way that I had to figure out. It took me years of working through the mud and not doing things so well and not having great outcomes with those that I was working with to really identify, so what am I missing? Right? Like, what are these pieces that I'm missing? And so I talk about these 12 keys to effective coaching and teaching that are really the pieces that I felt like I was missing. And emotional intelligence is one of those keys.
Yeah. Because if we're not in charge or handling our own emotions, how do you connect at a deeper level with your client?
Right. It goes back to that relationship, right? That, one of the things that I really try to be mindful of in my coaching relationships, because I've experienced this both as a client as well as a coach, is it's easy to do surface level relationships with people. Super easy to build that. But the problem is you can't go deep with people when you just have a surface level relationship, right? And transformation is deep work. To really transform yourself, you have to be willing to get vulnerable, to get uncomfortable, to ask for help. And all of those things are dependent on the type of relationship that you have. And so those relationships are so, so critical. And again, the foundation, it's all about, are you emotionally available for somebody, right? Like, that's another point, is if I'm not even emotionally checked in with myself, how can I be emotionally available for somebody else? Right?
Yeah, that's very true. And I'm gonna share, I did deal with a coach months ago, and there was no emotional intelligence. She threw up all over me. And for me, that was the end of it.
Yeah.
I was done with it. I'm like, no, this is not a good relationship. This is not a place where I can have that deeper transformation, where I can truly connect with my business and my personal growth. That is super important to me. So when you're dealing with a coach too, as somebody who wants to be coached,
Yes.
we don't want to deal with somebody who does not have their emotional intelligence. Like, there's things that I caught that I'm like, you should not, I don't even want to know about this stuff. Like, this, this is none of my business. So that's something too, as the person who is looking for a coach, to really be looking for as well: the emotional intelligence, the connection, the questions. Can they actually transform will they be able to do the transformation that you're looking for? And I'm going to tell you guys, Susan has a free class, and I took it, and I've got pages of notes and a little post-it note too over here, because for me, just like her, I will be growing until I'm in the dirt. So it's imperative that we look at ourselves and say, are there areas of ourselves that we can grow and change and tweak and grow into?
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point too about discernment. When we think about emotional intelligence, I'm a very visual person. Like, the way I think is just in visual terms. And so I can think about, like, my experience, and there's been visuals I know people have put out there, but it's like all the things that I'm thinking are all of these things out here, right? And then the things that come out of my mouth or things that I can communicate are like this big. And one of the things, though, that we have to be able to do, especially as a coach, is high emotional intelligence also helps us become able to discern, right? When do we need to lean into this? When do we need to ask questions? When do we need to maybe unpack some of it? Versus maybe this is just something I got triggered, and this is something that I need to kind of just manage and deal with on my own. That's not really about the client, right? I think that we have to be really careful that we're not just like, I'm just coming back to your example of like bleh, word vomiting and opening up everything, every moment, anytime we have a feeling, right? There are going to be times where it's absolutely appropriate to talk about it and to, dig a little deeper into it. But there's also going to be times, and I'm just thinking about experiences that I've had in this past week, where in the past, and so this is where my growth has come in. In the past, I may have opened that can of worms, right? And it may not have turned out so well, versus I have been able to recognize, wow, like, and I literally, this is what I say in my brain. Do I need to say that right now? Is that an important thing for me to say? And I do a quick check-in, just split in the moment. Do I need to say it? Do I not need to say it? And I have been able to also protect myself, right, from unwanted, unhealthy conversations or interactions, just by simply having discernment around that. Right. And so that's a really important piece, not only just in life, but also as a coach, though, too.
Yes, it really, and I'm going to share right before we got on this call, I had gotten a letter.
Sugars.
Yes. And it came from the bank and I'm like, oh, it's really thin. Oh, no. So of course I try to open it without my glasses on and I'm unable to read one word. And then when I put my glasses on, I'm looking and I'm going, they said that my card got compromised in some something. And I went, all right, is it all good right in this moment? Yeah. What can I do about it right in this moment?
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It was that. Now, previously, I can tell you there have been times where I'd be like, oh my God, and I would just lose my mind. I would lose my mind, lose my shit, and run off half-cocked trying to fix something that I can't even fix because it's in the bank. Yeah. So I'm like, they're going to handle it. They're going to take care of it. I'll just do my due diligence even more to make sure nothing is, getting through. And that was it. It was, but there are times, where we just, it's that self-growth piece, and it is so very much that self-awareness piece. You have stressed that over and over in this call, and I'm going to second and third that is that self-awareness piece that we really need to pay attention to ourselves and the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs. Because it's really important. It's really, really important.
Well, and for anybody who's listening that like maybe emotional intelligence, this is a new phrase to you, a new like idea, or even maybe, and this is my case too, I had training on emotional intelligence years and years ago, but it was a very surface level training. And so like, again, it wasn't deeply instilled into my being or how I show up in the world. And so the first step, just like you said, Tricia, the first step is awareness. So the first thing that you can do to build your emotional awareness, to strengthen your emotional intelligence, is really just becoming aware of your emotions in the day. And one of the tools that I offer in my free course is really, and I do this with clients too, is track your emotions over the course of a day for 24 hours. Literally set a timer on your watch for every hour on the hour and just do a quick check-in. How am I feeling in this moment? And very specifically get to the root of that feeling that you're having. And then just like look back on it and be like, wow, like I had a lot of different feelings today. If you did that over the course of the week, it would be really interesting, right? Because there's no 2 days that are the same.
No.
Yeah. And so just that being able to check in with yourself on a regular basis is really the first step of just building that awareness. Because once you're aware of it, right, then you can start to learn how to manage it. And I also just want to share, I don't know, I feel pulled to share this. I'm a highly anxious person. And one of the things I don't want people to walk away with is like, oh, if I just build my emotional intelligence, like my anxiety can go away. I still deal with anxiety. However, what emotional intelligence and really building my emotional intelligence has helped me do is become aware of when I get anxious, right? So I can recognize what that feels like in my body. I can also have, I coach myself all the time. Why are you feeling this way? Where do you think it's stemming from? I ask myself all the open-ended questions. but really tapping into where that comes from. And then also just then the next step is about, how do I manage it? What are the tools that I use to be able to manage that? For me, meditation is a really important piece. Getting out in nature, walking, those are really important ones for me. And so just being aware of that. And so I want to make sure that there's no misnomer of like, oh, you can become emotionally intelligent and it will solve all your problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, there's no magic pill here.
Yep.
But it's a tool, right? It's a tool. And I think that it's one of the things that has really helped me for sure, not only as a coach, but it's helped me be a better mother. It's helped me be a better daughter, sister, friend, that I can show up in really kind, gentle, loving ways with people and with myself, right? Allows me to do that with myself in really authentic ways. And I think that's the other key of being emotionally intelligent is it has to be authentic. You can't fake it. You can try to, but I guarantee it won't work or last.
Fake it till you make it. That's a bad statement.
Yeah. I think authenticity, you have to, especially when it comes to emotions, it's got to be authentic. And people feel that, right? There's energy that comes with that.
Absolutely. Energy. All right, we are about that time. So I would love for you to share where people can get in touch with you, share any offerings that you may currently have. And guys, just remember, it will also be underneath this live that you can look for the links to reach Susan and check out what she is offering.
Great. I'll put it all in the comments. Thanks, Tricia, for having me. This is great.
Do you want to talk about where they can reach you?
So yes, you can reach me and I will put the link in the chat box. I have a 3-day free course that I'm doing next week if folks are interested in joining for that. I love doing events live. And I also have a replay page that I can also share if folks are interested in that. And then I also have a 3-month coaching certification course that I will be starting in September. And so there will be information I will share with that as well.
All right. And guys, I highly recommend her 3-day free course. You will walk away with quite a lot of information.
I like to offer lots of nuggets there.
Yes, she does. Thank you so much. I was really excited to have this conversation.
Yes, me too. All right. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.